All right, if you're ready, Adam, I think we'll go ahead and get started.
All right.
My name is Alicia Irwin, and I am a social emotional learning coach for the MSD of Wayne Township. And we're so glad that you can join us for these afternoon sessions. I know that every single one I've been in has been incredible. And I love that, Adam, you are playing some music to give us some energy after sitting in our chairs most of the day. So I appreciate that. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We will have time for a couple of questions and answers at the end of the session, but feel free to jot questions down into the chat box while you are thinking of them. And either we can wait for them for later or they can be addressed during the session. And then also at the end, we will send you the link for the end of the session evaluation. If you could take just a moment to fill it out, we'd really appreciate it. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Adam Saenz and his EQ SEL intervention session.
Okay, well, thank you. Hold on. Yeah, I'm giving myself a round of applause. I think I deserve it. They're not standing, but maybe by the end of the session, it'll be a standing ovation. We'll see. So, I was thinking about workshops, you know, in workshop that one of the worst is when somebody is presenting and they just read. There's a lot of text on a slide and all they do is read a slide. And the whole presentation is them reading slide after slide after slide. And they've got like 98 slides, and that's the deal. So I thought, you know, I'm not going to do that, but I thought, what would be worse than that? And I think I have an answer. What if I did my whole presentation like that? So you're going to look at the backside of me. You're just going to look at my backside, and I'm going to look at myself, looking at myself from my backside. So it's a view and a view and a view, and it just goes on for infinity into that computer right there. That'd be a waste of time. We're not going to do that. All right. So my meds are obviously wearing off. So let's jump in before I get too sidetracked here. We're talking about SEL interventions. So, you know, the keynote was really talking about how to build relationships. You know, what do I need to do to be connected? And then after I get connected, what do I do when I see kids that are struggling? And we talked about mental health first aid and how the algae model can be a kind of a broad application intervention. Now we're going to look at one specific SEL intervention that I think will, it'll go a long way. You know, this is like one tool in the toolbox that I think will be really, really helpful given where we're at now. This intervention, this material that I'm going to be talking about today is from my book, The EQ Intervention. So this is one of the part of our training when we work with educators for the adult SEL part, not the child part, but the student part, but the adult SEL. This is part of how we train adults to be an SEL intervention for students. So that's kind of where this is coming from. So why does this matter? We'll start the discussion with this amazing athlete. Here's why this matters. And I'm sorry, hang on one sec. I'm going to try to adjust. Sorry, I'm having, you can't see this, but I'll just I messed up my screen somehow. Okay, here's why this matters, what we're gonna talk about, this particular SEL intervention. We'll start with a discussion with this amazing athlete, Michael Jordan, MJ, right there, back in the day with the Bulls. The thing about Michael Jordan, this amazing athlete, you know, arguably the best player, one of the best to play the game. How did he become Michael Jordan? How did he get to that rock star status? Well, he probably woke up one day and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my life, but maybe I'll try basketball. You know, I'm over 6 foot tall. It might work. I live in Chicago. There's a team called the Bulls. Let me go over there and see if they need anybody. So he went and he said, hey, I'm looking for a basketball job. And they said, well, we've got one open. And he did it. And it was the weirdest thing. It turned out he was the best ever, you know, like, of course it didn't go that way. Right. So before Michael Jordan was this rock star, as an adult or as a professional player, he was this rock star as a college player at North Carolina. So then the next question is, well, how did he get so good in college? Well, he was sitting around in his dorm room one day and he said, man, I'm taking 15 hours. I'm kind of bored. Maybe I can play basketball. Let me go to the coach here at Duke or UNC and see if they need anybody. Of course, it didn't go that way. So before he was this rock star college player in college, he was a rock star high school basketball player. And so again, same story. How did he get to be good in high school? Well, at some point before that, he decided, I want to be good at this. And he started doing everything he needed to be good. So that started in childhood, in his adolescence. And then what was good in adolescence became incredible in college. And what was incredible in college became just remarkable and unprecedented in some ways as in the full fledged of his professional career. So that's the story of Michael Jordan. How he became great. It goes back to his childhood. It goes back to his childhood. Okay. So with that in mind, let's talk about the toxic boss that you may have had or may not have had. We don't know. I'm sorry, hold on. There we go. Okay, I'm right where I need to be. The toxic boss that you may have had. I've had one when I worked at a school district, and it was absolutely miserable. So the question is, how did that toxic boss become the toxic boss? Well, it's like the Michael Jordan story. I don't think he woke up one day and said, you know what, man, I think I'm going to try toxic as a leadership style. You know, I mean, I've done everything else, but let's try toxic and see how that goes. And then the superintendent I had he was a narcissist. He was a bully. He threatened people. He intimidated them. He manipulated. It was horrible. And I don't think one day he woke up and said, let me try that style and see if that works. No, before he became that kind of superintendent, he was that kind of principal. And he led his campus from a bullying perspective as a narcissist. And he intimidated people, and he had no ability to manage his emotions. Well, how did that start? He didn't just say, let me try this on as a principal. He was probably that way in the classroom. And before he was a classroom teacher, he was that kind of a college student. And before he was that kind of a college student, he was probably that kind of a high school student. So it goes back to his childhood. At some point in his life, no one said to him, it's not okay for you to be a narcissist and to bully and to manipulate. And for whatever reason, because no one said anything and no one held him accountable and no one trained him how to have his needs met appropriately, he got better and better and better and better at being pathological and toxic. So that by the time he was a superintendent that I worked for, he was as good as any toxic narcissist I knew, right? But it goes back to childhood. It's lack of training, okay? So that's why this is relevant. What we're talking about is how do we begin to address skills training for children at an early age? Because what we're doing with them emotionally now as elementary school and middle school and even high schoolers, they take that into their early adulthood, into college, into trade school, into the military, into the workforce. And then they become those kinds of parents and those kinds of spouse and whatever it is. So the skills that the SEL skills that we're teaching them and imparting to them serve them well for the rest of their lives. And by corollary, what we don't teach them will hinder them severely for the rest of their lives. Okay, so I told you my toxic boss story, and let's not talk more because I don't want to get traumatized. So here's the deal on the old school thing about behavior management. It used to be, you know, back in the day I talked about this earlier, but the way we intervened with behavior was through behavior management, just traditional, what I call stick and carrot behavioral psychology. So let's take a look at that. And there's this saying that if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And if all you have is behavior management, you make everything look like a nail. So behavior management is like, well, we're going to use carrots. We're going to ignore mildly inappropriate behavior. No. Thing of, instead of relying on sticks like office referrals, in-school suspensions, and out-of-school suspensions. And that's great. I mean, I think that if we're going to lock into a behavior management style, if we're going to use behavioral psychology, using carrots in the long run serves, as the data show, it serves as better than using sticks. And then there's this one really big hammer that we have, and it is called special ed. And so for the kids that don't respond, the students that don't respond to carrots and sticks, we evaluate them. And I know I'm speaking in very broad terms here, so forgive me, but so we refer them. If they qualify, then they get special ed services. And that's that. And so what has happened over the course, the data are showing us over the course of time is that because special ed is the sort of the power tool in terms of dealing with emotion, we, over the years, in our desire to help children, have made them into special ed nails that really aren't nails, you know? In other words, we've overqualified children in our zeal to help them at our best and at our worst, honestly, just to get them out of a classroom because we want to do instruction, you know, at our worst. And we're finding that it's not working anymore. You know, sticks and carrots don't work anymore. When we look at what our kids are up against, you know, and I said this before, but I hear people talking about the damage that COVID-19, the psychological damage that COVID-19 is doing. And I heard that back in April. And back then I was saying, no. It's not doing damage. Well, it is. But what we're seeing now, COVID-19 didn't do this. It just exposed it. This has always been there. You know, most people just weren't aware of it. People that didn't work in schools anyway, they had no idea. They were just at home, and all of the stuff started, it just kind of pulled the cover over what was already there. Now, having said that, I think that there are there will be severe psychological fallout for COVID-19, and we're going to feel that for the next, I don't know, 18 months, 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, it's going to take many seen. I just don't know how long. Significant, and carrots and sticks are not going to serve us in that model. And we can't just qualify every kid for special ed that comes back from COVID-19 and their parent says, I think he's depressed, you know? So we've got to figure something else out so that we can empower them with something now that will serve them for the rest of their lives. Dan Goleman said, if you don't have self-awareness, if you're not able to manage your distressing emotions, if you can't have empathy and have effective relationships, then no matter how smart you are, you're not going to get very far. So Dan Goleman is an American psychologist. I think he was at, I don't know if he was at Loyola, but he wrote EQ, emotional intelligence, back in the 90s that kind of popularized. That was the first time that emotional intelligence came to mainstream awareness. It's been around since the 60s at least, academically, but he's the one that really popularized it. But that's his thing, is that, you know, you can do behavior management and, you know, do all that Pavlov stuff and rewards and consequences. But at a core level, if a student doesn't learn how to recognize emotion, how to regulate emotion, how to recognize emotion in others through empathy, and how to connect with them through social skills, no effective decision-making will happen. Or in other words, even if you have the degrees and whatever training, if you can't do those things, you're not going to make effective decisions. So this SEL stuff that we're teaching is so important. So what does it look like? This is from CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. If we're going to do SEL and call it SEL, these 5 things need to be in place from their website. Number 1, there has to be an element of self-management. Number 2, there has to be an element of self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. That's it in a nutshell. Any good SEL program needs to have those 5 components. Here's another way to think of that. When you take a self-aware individual who's also self-regulated, and those are 2 big things, step 1 and step 2, and you add to that empathy and social skills, you're going to get an adult who makes good decisions. You're going to get a student who makes good decisions. When students are self-aware and self-regulated, when they're connected through social skills, they make effective decisions. And what does effective decisions look like? Well, it's anything from, I'm going to apply myself academically. I'm going to seek excellence academically. I'm overwhelmed, but I'm going to choose to breathe instead of hit my neighbor. I'm scared, depressed, anxious, lonely, and hopeless about the future. I'm going to talk to somebody instead of bringing a gun to school. I mean, that's how relevant this is. So that it's totally necessary. And again, you see that if we can empower our students to live these kinds of lives, isn't it amazing to think of what kind of adults they'll be as parents, as professionals, in all realms of their life. So we talked about my book, yada, yada, I'm gonna skip that. So now what I'm gonna do is let's go back to that self-awareness and self-regulation. A big part of self-awareness is just creating what we call emotional literacy, understanding what an emotion is and what it feels like in my body. So that's really where I'm going to be honing in today, is on that first top left-hand circle of or oval of self-awareness. We don't have time to, I'm going to talk a little bit about self-regulation too. I don't have time to get into empathy or social skills, but that's really where we're going to camp out. It's on the left-hand side of self-awareness and self-regulation. So we talk about emotion. There are 5 ways. I'm going to talk about 5 ways that we can deal with emotion or not deal with them in terms of least adaptive to most adaptive. So number 1 is ignore the emotion. In some way, just act like it's not there. There's a time and a place in that for that. For some kids that function fairly well day in, day out, and they're just having a bad day and they're moody, it's okay to ignore emotion and just don't even worry about it. Don't make an issue out of it. But for a student that that there are consistent data points that show this line, that they're not doing well, it doesn't do me any good to ignore it and just pretend like if I ignore it, it's going to go away. I can't ignore the emotion when students are showing me over time that they're having a difficult time managing it. So ignoring it's not going to be helpful. So think about it this way. Imagine that you're trying, hold on. Imagine that you're trying to teach math, or let's say reading. You're trying to increase literacy. And so the first time somebody pulls out a letter, the alphabet, A, B, C, D, F, G, and you say, oh, the alphabet. No, I'm going to ignore the alphabet and hope it goes away and somehow think that I'm going to teach literacy by ignoring the alphabet. Those books, I'm going to ignore the books and, we're not going to do. Well, that's what we're doing when we can't teach emotional intelligence or SEL skills until kids learn emotional literacy. And when we start squashing emotion from the get-go, we're doing that. No, don't want to do SEL. We're not going to teach that here. So ignoring emotion is not the adaptive response that we're looking for. So that's 1, is to ignore it. Number 2 is inhibit it, which is to restrict the students from experiencing challenging feelings. So you're not ignoring it. You are inhibiting it. And so what is that like? What does that sound like? It's just sort of like, the students in the classroom, they're online or whatever, and they're obviously angry, frustrated, whatever it might be. And we say, stop, calm down. You just want to squash it. Quit being angry, quit being sad, quit being anxious, quit being happy, whatever it might be. So you're just inhibiting, you're just wanting to repress it. So you're not doing that, you're not ignoring it, but you're just trying to squash it, thinking that like if you pull a weed, it's going to go away. And it just doesn't work that way. So option number 1 is to ignore emotion. Option number 2 is to inhibit emotion. And again, as long as you're inhibiting, you're not going to get to a place of instructing. Number 3 is invalidate emotion. Tell my students that they are wrong to feel how they feel. And we're all guilty of that, especially in our desire to help kids. We're trying to help them. We're trying to soothe them. We know they're overwhelmed. And we're trying to think of the right thing to do or say to help them feel better. And like, oh, no, you shouldn't feel bad. You should feel good because you have me and I'm here with you. You should feel grateful that you live in America. And even though the statue that you want isn't up or the statue you don't like is up, in Africa, there are starving children, so you should just feel grateful that you're not a starving child in Africa. And all that other stuff, you shouldn't feel angry. Hey, that you missed your football season. At least you get to come to school. All of that kind of stuff. When you're invalidating the emotion, you're training the child. Number 1, don't trust your feelings. You're telling them because you're not competent enough to understand what you should feel, and I am, so you need me, and that's just not helpful. And again, back to the analogy of trying to learn reading. What if the letters that came out, A, B, C, D, E, F, D, they started saying the letters A, B, C, and you started invalidating it, when in fact it was right. That's not an A, it's an R, but in fact it's an A. That's sort of how this thing plays out, when we start invalidating emotion like that. It's just not helpful. Okay, so we can ignore emotion, we can inhibit emotion, we can invalidate emotion. You shouldn't feel that way. And now we get to something constructive. We invite emotion. tell my students, tell my spouse, tell my colleague that all feelings are welcome. Oh my gosh, man, that's no small order. Are you kidding me? All emotions are welcome. You're inviting emotion. What are you, an idiot? You know, what are you signing up for? What kind of can of worms are you about to open when you start inviting emotion? When you actually tell kids, bring it, it's okay, whatever you feel, angry, happy, sad, confused, whatever, it's all right, it's good, it's all welcome here. That's scary, that's threatening, because you start thinking about it and you start thinking, well, what do I do with it? I don't know what to do. Why would I want to invite their emotion? You know, why would I want to invite all of that energy that I then have to harness and manage? And no, it's better to ignore it. It's better to squash it and repress it, you know, inhibit it. It's better to invalidate it, you know. But all of those are just forms of denial. Only when I invite emotion, you know, am I saying now I'm setting it up to instruct it. It's sort of like saying, we want to learn literacy. Well, let's invite the alphabet. Let's invite the books. Let's invite everything that is related to literacy and put it all on the table. And yep, it's overwhelming. And man, but hey, we're going to start basic. What are the letters of the alphabet? And then we're going to start with small words, cat, dog. And then we're going to add those words and make sentences, and we're going to add those sentences to chapter books. And before you know it, man, you're going to be reading War and Peace by the time you're a senior. But it starts off at a very, very basic level. So it's the same thing with emotions. You know, when I think about, if I want to teach children to be self-aware and self-regulated, they will never develop self-awareness if I'm ignoring their emotion. They will never develop self-awareness if I'm inhibiting their emotion. They will never develop self-awareness if I'm invalidating their emotion. But once I start to invite the emotion, then they can develop emotional literacy. Then they can start to develop self-awareness. And then once I invite it, now I have postured myself to instruct it. Now we can actually get productive with all that feeling, with all that energy that's coming out onto the table. Now we can make something of it. Now that we've got letters and we've got books and all of that, we can start becoming literate. And that's what we want. But that's the part that I think can be anxiety producing for somebody that's not a mental health professional, even for mental health professionals. But if you're a classroom teacher, you know, and your area of expertise is not emotional literacy, it's threatening to say, are you kidding? I know these kids are overwhelmed. I know they're dealing with a lot. And Adam, you're telling me I'm supposed to invite that? Well, what am I supposed to do with it? And I say, well, you instruct it. And you're like, well, great. Well, what does that mean? How do I instruct it? You know, this wasn't part of my lesson plan, you know? So I get the anxiety, but there's good news. And so we're going to talk now about how you actually instruct it. So this is step one. So I'm going to flip back to that. So we talked about self-awareness over here. Hold on, there's my mouth. Self-awareness is getting from a place where you're moving from ignoring emotion, inhibiting it, invalidating it, to inviting it. And then when you instruct emotion, then you start moving into self-regulation. Now you can start teaching the student what to do with the emotion. So now we're going to talk about what that instructional piece of self-regulation actually looks like. Okay, so let's go back to that. Those are the 5 ways to handle emotion. Now we instruct it. So what do we do? This is the workings of a BIP, a behavior intervention plan. This is essentially it. It's a little more fleshed out, but this is essentially what we're doing when we create a behavior intervention plan. Number 1, identify the feeling using a feeling chart or any other cues. Say, Adam, it looks like you're feeling angry. I see that your fists are clenched, your eyebrows are squished, and your face looks like this one on the feelings chart. And you'll have I'll show you what a feelings chart looks like in a minute that you can reference. But there you are, man. You've invited the emotion. It's out there. And step 1 is that this is the beginning of moving into the next phase, which is empathy. How do I know that you're angry, Adam? Because, man, I'm looking at your face. I'm looking at your body. You're breathing heavily. So that's me modeling for Adam empathy, right? So that's it. You identify the feeling so that that's where they start learning emotional literacy. Oh, when they say angry, what they mean is my body doing this and my heart rate elevating. Ah, great. So they're learning it. Okay, so that's step one is that you identify the feeling. Number two, well, there's the feelings chart. Just put something like when we work with classrooms, we have every teacher put up a feelings chart. I mean, it's a non-negotiable. You know, if you're gonna, I just don't see how you can teach SEL effectively without a feelings chart of some sort, even emojis or whatever it is. You can reference this to help them understand what the feelings look like from a facial expression perspective. Okay. So number one, then step two is you validate the feeling. So you've identified the feeling, you know, by naming it, what it looks like, and then you validate the feeling. Say, it's okay to feel angry. And then you go here and you say, Adam, sometimes I feel angry when people ask me to do things that I really don't want to do. So you're building an alliance with them. You're building a partnership with them. I was stuck in traffic and I wanted to go do this, but the traffic kept me held up. Man, I was so mad, you know. I know exactly what that feels like. So you're teaching the child in that moment, yes, it's okay for you to feel that way. You have permission to feel that way. And you're probably not wrong to feel angry. If that's what you feel, that's what you feel. And I've been there too. I've felt anger too. And so you're partnering with them and building the alliance with them, instead of saying, you shouldn't feel angry, you should feel happy and all that other stuff. It's just not, it doesn't lead to a teachable moment. Okay. So you validate the feeling. It's okay to feel angry. Then step three is you link the feeling with a behavior. You say, Adam, I know that you're angry. And when you feel angry, you use your body to hurt others. Now we're getting to instruction. This is that lower left-hand oval of self-regulation. This is where we teach self-regulation. You're linking that feeling with some kind of observable action. And so think back to the traditional behavior management and why it doesn't work, you know. Okay, so Adam, if you're angry, we don't even start with the feeling, we start with the behavior. When you hit people, that's bad, and when you don't hit people, that's good. So if you hit people, you get a punishment, and if you don't hit people, you get a carrot, you get a sticker, whatever. All of that is camped out at a superficial level of behavior. It never gets to the underlying emotion, which is why I have a problem with, not a problem, but why I get frustrated with pure behavior management, is because it doesn't, most behavior management does not develop emotional literacy. It's like Pavlov's dogs. I'm going to train you to do this and I'm going to train you not to do that. You're not going to get any insight. You're not going to be able to generalize that once you leave my classroom, but it works for me, you know, and it really doesn't work for anybody if we're not getting into the deeper level of recognizing emotion and then figuring out what emotion is fueling that behavior. If the student doesn't learn to make that connection, then they're missing a valuable lesson in self-awareness and self-regulation. So you link the feeling with the behavior. When you feel angry, you use your body to hurt others. When you get angry, you destroy property. When you get angry, you say hurtful things to other people. So you name the inappropriate behavior. And then step four is you offer a substitute behavior. Say, it's okay to be angry, man. I get angry too, but it's not okay to hurt people. Next time you feel angry, please take 5 deep breaths, just like we do when we find our learning place. And so when I talk about the learning place, it's, I tell the kids, you know, quick lesson in neuropsych, frontal lobe, this part of the brain, the amygdala, emotions are more back here, brainstem type stuff. This is higher ordered thinking, not fully developed in men until their mid-20s, which is seriously why insurance rates drop. The actuarial charts show that you're going to be safer as a male driver when you're 25 and older, because you finally have a frontal lobe for, you know, impulse control and all that. So this is where good decisions happen, and this is where emotion happens. And when I coach athletes, I tell them all the time, when we talk about emotionally intelligent athletic performance, it's about saying all the emotions you have back here, the fear of the competition, the fear of failure, the desire to win and to achieve, pull yourself up here into the front part of your brain so you can figure out how to take this fuel and be productive with it. That's essentially emotional regulation 101. So I tell them, think of, you know, like the movie Joe Dirt, a mullet, you know, business in front, party in the back. That's how you remember what to do. And our job is to get you from the party up to business so that you can think about what you're doing. So that's what we're doing here, is we're offering them a substitute behavior. And so let me get back to the PowerPoint. It's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hurt others. Next time you feel angry, take 5 deep breaths, and those breaths will help you get, or another way to say this, from your backyard to your front yard, from your amygdala to your frontal lobe, to your frontal cortex. That's where we find our learning place. And your learning place is up here. It's in the front. That's your learning place. It's not back here. It's up here. This is where the higher order executive functioning happens. So breathing is a great, great exercise across the board, but you can have a menu of options, and again, that's what we do when we work with teachers is, if we can go back, I'm going to go back to this feelings chart. What that means, what I'm talking about here is, look at every one of those feelings. Think about it. There's a behavioral roadmap when I'm frustrated that makes my life better. There are behaviors I can engage in when I'm frustrated that make my life better. There are behaviors I can engage in when I'm embarrassed that make my life better. There are behaviors I can engage in when I'm sad that make my life better. When I'm nervous, when I'm proud, when I'm lonely, when I'm loved. And by the same token, there are behaviors that I can engage in when I'm frustrated, when I'm embarrassed, when I'm sad, when I'm nervous, when I'm mad, when I'm happy, when I'm proud, that make my life worse. I can be a life giver fueled by any one of those emotions, and I can be a life sucker fueled by any one of those emotions. And I'm in charge of that, which is good news. It's good news, because what that means is that once I realize I'm in charge of that, then I can start becoming who I need to be for peak performance as a kindergarten student, And so if I'm functioning at that level of regulation as a kindergarten student, can you imagine what kind of Michael Jordan I'm going to be when I'm a senior in high school? And then can you imagine when I get to college or wherever I go from there, what a productive member of society I am? And as Pollyannish as that may sound, it's so legit. I mean, it actually works that way. The research show, without a doubt. So let's get back to this, instructing emotion. So number one, you, identify the feeling. Number two, you validate the feeling. Number three, you link the feeling with a maladaptive behavior, the behavior the life sucker behavior. Then number four, you offer a substitute behavior, the life-giving behavior, whatever that might be. You have that roadmap for every emotion so that kids know what they can do in a way that's life-giving, okay? And then number five, you offer reward for any approximation of the replacement behavior. Say, thank you for taking one deep breath, keep going. So let me elaborate on that a little bit. So let's say that you're working with a student in your classroom, his name is Adam, and he's got a problem with anger management. And you say, okay, man, Adam's just an angry kid. Whatever, maybe he's got good reasons to be angry. Maybe he doesn't, I don't care. He's in my classroom and I got to teach math. So I used to ignore it, his anger, and I just didn't want to deal with it. And that didn't work because his anger stayed there and he knew I was ignoring him, and that just made him more angry. So then I tried to inhibit it and just squash it. Quit being angry, get over it, stop it. And that didn't work. And then I tried to invalidate. You shouldn't be angry, you should be happy, right? Tried to get him to change his perspective and turn that frown upside down. That didn't work. So then this guy named Adam gave a workshop and said, I should start inviting that anger, oh man. So I said, Adam, if you're angry, let me know about it. And so he did. You suck, you're a sucky teacher, this is a sucky school, COVID sucks, right? So then I invited it, and then I got to instruct it. So we put Adam on a behavior plan. And anytime he got angry, I identified the feeling. Adam, it sounds like you're angry because you're saying hurtful things and you're knotted up. And then I linked it with a maladaptive behavior. Adam, when you're angry, man, you say hurtful things to people. You say things that make people sad. You destroy property. It's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hurt. So then we validated it. We linked it with a behavior. Then we offered a substitute. Remember, Adam, next time you get angry, it's okay to be angry, but instead of doing those things, just breathe, man. Let's just take 5 deep breaths. So, that process takes a while. It did 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, the first semester, who knows how long it takes. It just depends on the student. So then you get to the point where it's time to Adam knows the plan. He knows instead of going this way, I'm going to go this way with my anger. So Adam gets angry and you know the plan, and he starts to escalate, and you just kind of cue him gently and you say, Adam, it looks like you're angry. Take some deep breaths. And Adam goes, oh yeah, right. Okay, here we go. There's 1. And then he goes 2. Oh, this sucks. I can't stand this. You're such an idiot. You're such a fool, right? And then you're off to the races, and so then you're thinking, oh, are you kidding me, man? I've been working for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I've tried to be patient and loving and kind with Adam in his anger, and I tried to do this stupid behavior plan, and then we got to this point, and he gave me 2 breaths, and he fell apart. This isn't working. This sucks. This is stupid, and it's easy to succumb to that. But the rock star adult in that moment says, Adam, you gave me 1 breath, man. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate your effort. Maybe next week you'll give me 2, maybe not, but you gave me 1. And I'll tell you what, man, I'd rather you breathe 1 time heavy and then not even breathe at all and just go straight into name calling. So thanks, man. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it. I see you, I hear you, I respect you, and this is good, man. We're moving in the right direction. And then Adam is validated at that point. It's like, if you're going to give me that much growth, Adam, behaviorally, I'm going to put Miracle Grow on it. I'm not going to condemn it or deny it, or you're so stupid, or you should be doing better. Why can't you be like the rest of the kids? This is you. You're showing growth. Awesome. God bless you. Thank you. That's what I mean by reinforce when I talk about reinforcing the behavior. That any approximation of the replacement behavior, we want to put Miracle Grow on it. And I'll tell you, man, where I see this go wrong is I hear it less now, as the generations go, but I still get teachers that say, oh, what are you talking about, Adam? Why should I reinforce him for what he should already be doing? He should understand that I'm the adult and he's not, and he should understand that he should give me respect. I shouldn't have to earn his respect. Back in my day, man, we knew that if we destroyed property, that was a no-no, man. We knew better than that. And he's in 6th grade already. And you're expecting me to reward him and reinforce him for things he should already know. I just think, like, you know what, man, go away with that attitude already. Can you imagine if we tried to teach reading that way? Well, I don't know, Adam, back in my day, we could identify letters when we were in 6th grade. And this kid shows up, and I don't know what his parents were doing at home or weren't doing, but I don't know why I just took that tone of voice. I don't know what this kid's parents were doing or not doing when he was at home, but he's in 6th grade and he doesn't know letters. And I'm not going to reinforce him to learn. He should know that by now. Can you imagine, would any literacy ever happen if we chose that option? Would any math ever happen if we said, well, back in my day, we knew how to add 1-digit numbers by 6th grade, and this kid doesn't. So I'm not going to reward him for that. He should know that, and have his parents teach that to him. And when he gets back to me, then we'll be okay. And I'll start thinking about rewarding him. Well, man, I just don't know how well that's going to work, honestly, And so at some point, we've got to have the humility as adults to say, look, man, I'm not here to ask what your problem is. I'm here to ask what your story is. And I'm not here to say, what can I do to fix you? I'm here to say, how can I come alongside you and love you and support you? That's where we start making the kind of progress. And it's, again, no small order and no small task from us as adults, but that's where we find life. That's where we find growth. Okay. So let's move along. 3 key truths for students to know about their emotions. Number 1, all emotions are okay. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. Okay. Number 2, there are helpful and hurtful ways to handle our emotions. And number 3, this thing about growth mindset versus fixed mindset with regard to emotion. Growth mindset means I'm going to change, basically. I'm willing to change. And my job as an instructor, as an adult, as a leader in that child's life is to set up the circumstances so that change becomes an attractive option to them. What do I need to do to make change an attractive option to them? And then what can I not do that makes change an unattractive option to them? And I was providing supervision to one of my postdocs, and she's working with a parent and a child, a 9-year-old. And the referral question, this is in an outpatient therapy setting, and the parent said, my kid's lying, man. I'm really scared about it, and it's blatant, obvious lies. So like, I'll come in and there's popcorn all over his floor, and he knows he wasn't supposed to have popcorn, and I'll say, what's going on here? And he'll say, I don't know, I didn't do this popcorn. And he's obviously lying, and I know in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a deal, but what if this turns into something else? And I just think maybe this is a good time to come in. Great. So they're in therapy now, and it turns out that the mother's personality style is very rigid, and like just she's on everything like white on rice. And she even said, you know, I know that sometimes I'm a helicopter parent, you know, but, and then she had that unfortunate but after that. I know I'm a helicopter parent, you know. So basically what's going on is that this parent is micromanaging this child and just on them about every little thing, you know, and any little infraction gets a lecture, you know. And so this kid is sort of saying, like, essentially the function of his behavior, his lying behavior is like, I don't want to deal with you, because anytime I do the slightest little thing wrong, you're such a neurotic, perfectionist, helicoptering mother that I'm not going to hear the end of it. And so I'd rather just live in this denial and lie to you about this, because if I say yes, then you're going to say, now what's the rule? And how many times do I have to talk about this? And am I going to have to hide the popcorn? And if you keep, you know. So anyway, the whole point of that was that that parent was making change a very unattractive option for that child, you know, because through nagging and all of that. But if you can enter in and make a change an attractive option to a child, then the likelihood that we'll find success, that the behavior will actually change, it increases dramatically. Okay. So the last thing is, how does my personality impact how I approach emotion? And I just kind of alluded to that with this parent. There's so much to cover that I don't have time to get into, but our personality styles determine to a large degree what we do with emotion. There are 5 major personality features, but two of the 5, one is called conscientiousness and one is called agreeableness. People who are highly conscientious value the completion of tasks above relationships, and people who are highly agreeable value relationships above the completion of tasks. So in some ways, those two personality styles are kind of diametrically opposed. If you're highly conscientious, sort of the Rambo, you like to get things done and make a list and check it all, you know, and you don't care about emotion, just get things done. You're not going to be a good SEL teacher. Let me tell you, you're going to be locked into ignoring emotion, inhibiting emotion, invalidating emotion, because who's got time to deal with emotion? We got stuff to do, you know? Yeah, maybe we have stuff to do, but what good, like Dan Goleman said, what good does it do if I, you know, can do all those, check all those things off my list, but I'm not emotionally literate. So for all you highly emotional or highly task-oriented people that value like me, that value ironic, I'm a psychologist, but I don't do much therapy anymore. That's why. For all of you people like me that value the completion of tasks over emotion, you're going to have your work cut out for you when it comes time to teaching children emotional literacy. And when they fail to develop emotional literacy, the first question you need to ask is, how have I failed as a teacher in this? Have I valued the completion of tasks over the relational quality here? For those of you who are highly relational, that highly agreeable, and I've looked at about 2,000 data points from the assessment that we do. I developed a personality instrument called the EASEL, the EASEL, that stands for Educator Assessment of Social and Emotional Learning. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Go to the appliedeqgroup.com if you want to take it for free. On the very top of the home page, you'll see a light blue bar across the top. It's the shade of the light blue in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. And it's a personality test. And you take it, and it's going to email you a report that shows you what your personality style is, and what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And we use this to help teachers develop their own, when we focus on adult SEL, we use the EASEL to make that happen. So if you're interested, you can go to the Applied EQ group, take the test for free, and it'll email you a report for free. So anyway, the point is that your personality style or ineffective in your endeavors to teach instruction, emotional instruction anyway. Okay. How does my belief about student behavior impact my approach to emotion? Well, I think I talked about this earlier, but in generally it's that, like, if you're from the old school, like, man, I'm the old adult, they just need to shut up and listen to me. Good luck, man. Good luck. Maybe that'll work. And for the kids that it does work, they don't need emotional intelligence training anyway because they're afraid of you. Let's move on to the Q&A. So I don't see a Q&A box, but so here we go again. See that's the thinking music. The Jeopardy theme is the thinking music. So I'm gonna cue the Jeopardy music, and then anybody that has a question, you are going to type that into the chat, and we're gonna see what questions we come up with. Okay, let's see. Anyone? Bueller? No. Okay, no problem. Oh wait, there's one. How do you help someone go from highly conscientious to highly agreeable or find balance? Who asked that? Jen Johnson, dude, that is such a rock star question, man. The bad news is that's a whole half-day workshop. But if you go to the easel, if you take the easel and you score highly, regardless of where you score, it shows, your report will show for each category of those 5 personality styles. If you score high on conscientiousness, these are things that you can do to make sure that you retain the strengths associated with being highly conscientious, but also minimizing the weaknesses. And then there are fears that, like, people who are highly conscientious fear being out of control. They fear not knowing the outcome. They fear missing out. And so there are questions you can ask yourself, and then just practices, behavioral practices that you can engage in. Good job, Jen. Thanks for that question. Next one. How do you suggest getting by in front of old school teacher thinking on EQ? Getting buy-in on them. Man, that's a good question. If they represent the minority of the population, I don't know that I would try to get buy-in from them. I would just ignore mildly inappropriate behavior. Again, that's a half-day workshop too. So it just depends on how many people are buying into the old school and why they're buying into the old school and what options they've been presented and how those options have been presented to them. Again, it's one of those things about, have they been presented an option that motivates them to want to change? Great question, Emily, thank you. Coleman, when already highly agreeable, how do we not, I lost it. How do we not succumb to exhaustion? Set boundaries, that's another good one. So if you're highly agreeable, you're a people pleaser, you want everybody to be happy, so you do, and which is beautiful, but you're gonna do that at the expense of yourself. And so you're going to end up depleted and overwhelmed and frustrated and cynical and bitter and angry. So you do that by setting boundaries. Take the test and look on the report for the highly agreeable personality variable and look at the recommendations there. But that's the two-edged sword about being a teacher, especially if you're elementary school, because elementary school teachers tend to be more agreeable and secondary teachers tend to be less agreeable. It sounds kind of funny, but it's true. So elementary school teachers, you're warm, fuzzy, you're lovey-dovey. Kids know that you're emotionally accessible, but you're going to burn out because you just want to save the world. And God bless you for that. But if you don't set boundaries and love yourself as well as you love everyone else, you won't get far, or you'll get burned out very, very quickly. Thank you for these questions. It is 3:31, and now we're going to do the game show. So what we're going to do is I am going to show you a phone. Well, first of all, for the game show, follow me on Twitter at Adam Saenz PhD, and that'd be awesome. And then right now, to win, sorry about that. Hold on. Hold on. My technology's getting away. Now, the winner, I'm going to take the first caller at that number. First caller, you're going to score a book and a gift card. A book and a gift card. Oh, I see somebody calling in from West Palm Beach, Florida. What? Hello, this is Adam.
Hi, it's Megan. I actually am living in Indiana. I just never changed my number.
You're living in Indiana, but you never changed your number. Oh, man. I'm going to give you a round of applause for your honesty.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how long have you been in Indiana?
Oh, I grew up here and then moved back. So.
Oh, yeah. Do you miss Florida?
No, not really.
Man,
not at this time.
They're winning the COVID-19 race or losing it, however you want to think about it.
Yeah, they sure are.
What do you do there in Indiana? What's your role?
I am the school social worker, and I provide therapy to our students K through 12.
Oh, you know what? Another round of applause for you for being that person to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're K-12, is that right?
Correct.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to email me, adam@adamsaenz.com, and we're going to send you 2 books and a Starbucks gift card, and then I'm going to give you some passes to our online course if you want to take that and share it with somebody for free.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Well, have a great summer. We appreciate you.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, so round of applause for our Florida. That's for the COVID numbers in Florida. And Texas, really, what am I talking about? We're not doing much better. But that's for everybody that is being socially responsible. Okay, so that's the end of my session here. We talked about emotional SEL intervention, and I just wanted to give you one quick, doable, practical intervention. You know, invite the emotion, instruct the emotion, and then you instruct it by identifying it, validating it, linking with a maladaptive behavior, choosing a substitute behavior, and then rewarding for any kind of growth. Okay, that's all I got. Alicia, I'm going to throw it back to you then if there's nothing else.
Yeah, Adam, that's great. There's so much in there and so much on your website to check out as well. I've gone ahead and linked in the chat box the presenter survey. If you wouldn't mind taking just a minute to fill that out before you head to your next session. And Adam, we're just so thankful for all of the time you've spent with us today, and we will hope to see you in the last 2 sessions, so session 6 and then the closing panel. Have a great afternoon.